Sports Talk New York with your hosts Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates, Send in the Clowns, the Phoenix Tube Company, CelebrityTrips.com, the law firm of Decolator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and Relish Restaurant of Kings Park. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
Joining us now is the founder and CEO of Hazan Sports Management and Java Ads, Inc. He founded both companies as an undergraduate student at Yeshiva University, Cy Sims School of Business, where he since graduated. Along with representing and negotiating playing services for his clients, his company also assists the players he represents in achieving their maximum off-court potential. It is a thrill to welcome the youngest licensed agent in the world with a player on an NBA roster, Dan the Man, also known as Daniel Hazan, to WLIE Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, how are you? How's everything?
Great.
Before you get into your questions, I'm going to ask a real test question.
test?
Dan.
Sure.
Yes. Dan, do you know
I knew you were going to ask.
Do you know who Cy Sims was?
No, I do not know who Cy Sims is.
Wow. We're an educated consumer. Is our best customer.
It was a discount clothing chain, and Cy Sims was known for these ads.
Family business.
Family business. And Cy Sims' story. He went to court and actually had his name changed.
Cy Sims
He had his name changed. This is why it's wrong in some stories I've seen, even on the website for the company. He had his name changed. It was all in capitals.
Wow.
And if you ran in a newspaper the name Cy Sims and didn't have the Sims in capitals, he would call up the next day and complain. So that's the model that taught you all about business. Now let's move on.
So let's walk us through how you're still in college. You start one business, Java Ads, sell that, and start Hazan Sports Management. Walk us through that. And Ryan, you got to listen to this. I mean, this all happened in college. This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's that entrepreneurial energy that I had. Obviously, going to school, you're sitting through all these, management classes, marketing classes, business classes, et cetera. And, they create that drive in you to just, be successful in your own way. And, you obviously have a lot of time on your hands in college, and, I wasn't too much interested in the whole party scene and hanging out scene. I had a girlfriend at the time, who I ended up marrying in June. And, with all my free time, I was like, why not just start something I'm passionate about? Didn't really have high expectations for it at all, but I knew at the end of the day it would be a learning experience, in whatever capacity, however, if it succeeded or it didn't. And, just went on and things blossomed from there.
So walk us through that first business, Java Ads. What exactly was that, and how did that lead to seed money for, obviously, the sports management company?
Yeah, so I mean, the Java Ads is pretty much a concept of putting advertisements on coffee cups, and then placing these coffee cups in bodegas around the New York City area. And the concept was, the business is a penny business, the business of coffee. You're selling coffee. Your margins are very small, but you're selling them in quantity, and your margins aren't too big, but with the quantity, you're able to make a profitable business. And as part of selling these coffee cups, these vendors had an added cost of the actual coffee, the coffee cup itself. And these bodegas, they weren't concerned about building their own brand and having their logo on their coffee cups because that was costly. They just had regular cups. So I came with them and said, hey, listen, I'll provide you with coffee cups. I'll have advertisements on them, and I'll save you thousands of dollars a year on free coffee cups.
I had a similar idea. All right. Now, here's the difference. You probably go to your parents and your friends, and they push you and say that's a great idea. Being Jewish, every Christmas Eve, what most Jewish people do, you
go to a Chinese restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying these containers that you take the Chinese takeout with, for just 1 month, I think I would be able to sell advertising time for J-Date on these containers. Because
I think we have the movie schedule on there.
Something, right. So that was So now you take this seed money that you make from Java, and you decide to be an NBA agent. All right.
So let's back up there for a second. So you talk about didn't have a lot of time, didn't want to do a lot of stuff. How much of a sports fan were you, and was it just basketball? And is that why you wanted to be a basketball agent, or were you a general sports fan?
No, I was, obviously I liked all the sports, but I was heavily, in love with the game of basketball. Obviously, my favorite team was the New York Knicks. I grew up in New York, and my whole life was based around the New York Knicks. My favorite player growing up was Allen Houston, and I till this day my favorite number is number 20, and everything around my day was really centered around the Knicks. I'd walk around with the little pocket schedules. I would take stats during the games. I was going watching the games, waiting for autographs. Outside the green awning, outside the garden. Like I was like a true diehard Knicks fan, and I was always scalping, selling tickets, and I was always involved in whatever way I could be with the Knicks. I was really like a true fanatic, and that's where my love of the game really came to be, and starting the sports agency out of college, it was a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. You have something in common with my daughter. My daughter was one of Forbes 30 under 30. You were a 30 under 30 nominee. But I remember specifically when my daughter, pitched her idea for this nonprofit she was going to start. And as a parent, you're really skeptical, and you're almost saying, all the reasons why you shouldn't do this. When you go to your parents with this idea and say, listen, I'm at college, but I want to be a sports agent, primarily basketball, what's the reaction you get from your family?
Yeah, I mean, the reaction is not the reaction, you would hope from, family who your family's supposed to support you and always give you your support. And, anything I really did ventures outside of, the normal realm of life, which is go to high school, go to college, and then get a job, or go to grad school. They're not going to give you the reaction you want. I didn't get that reaction from my parents. I didn't get I always got the questioning me. Oh, will this work? How could this work? Maybe you should stop. And it's tough because you don't have support. And I'm first generation American, so everything has been the old-fashioned way with my parents. And investing money into a business that you don't know is going to yield something for sure is not the safe route to take, and it was tough.
So it's also interesting, though, because when you say, it's not the conventional way, you take a look at the way you built your Rolodex, and certainly that is not a conventional way whatsoever. Could you please share with our audience how you went about filling in your Rolodex?
Question 2, do you know what a Rolodex is?
He knows what a Rolodex is.
So the story of how I really started my agency is quite fascinating. But once I already kind of started my business, I landed my first client that had like NBA potential, and that was Elijah Millsap. And at that point, we were talking about, we get you into the NBA or whatever. But I didn't have any contacts in the NBA, and the way I was able to get those contacts was, one night I went on eBay and I Googled NBA business cards, and a lot of NBA business cards, were signed by Greg Popovich and other, great GMs, et cetera. People were selling those business cards online. So I just zoomed in online on those cards, and I was able to pull out the way they were, the way that they were creating the email. So if it was gpopovich@spurs.com, if I wanted to get in touch with R.C. Buford, I would put in rbuford at spurs.com, and that's how I started. And then I was able to figure out how the email addresses were configured, and that's how I started reaching out to teams.
Well, how do you actually go out and find the players? It's one thing to say you get the contacts with the teams. Now you have to convince players to sign with you. How did you start and choose the players to single out first, and how did things go from there? Sure.
So, the way I started was very simply at the time I was following like some college basketball players on Facebook of my hometown team in Israel. The team was called Naria, and I was friends with on Facebook with those players. And I decided, hey, why don't I just reach out to them and tell them, hey, I'm an agent, like, why don't I represent you? And I actually wasn't even an agent. I wasn't certified. I had no experience in anything. And lo and behold, I was able to pull out a couple players, and these kids all played D1. And for me, like a D1 player was like the biggest deal. Like, wow, man, I have a D1 player. That's crazy. But I didn't understand anything about the game. So I ended up, representing like 5 players. And I told these players, hey, listen, like, there are D-League tryouts, open tryouts, the same ones that Jonathan Simmons went to. there are these D-League Open tryouts. I'll pay for your travel. I'll fly you around, and I believe in you guys. And I ended up flying them around. I spent maybe like $40,000, and none of these guys were worth anything. They weren't really good basketball players, but I thought that they were great. And so, I lost a lot of money there, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And someone on Facebook reached out to me, and he had told me that he was a coach for a team in Mongolia. And I didn't even know what Mongolia was. Like, Mongolia is a country in Asia, a small country, and he said, we're starting this new league, and I want you to be the super agent. And all your players will all be in my league. And I ended up signing all 5 of these guys in Mongolia. And they all started their career in this Mongolia. It was the first year that this country, started pro basketball. These players were making $1,000 a month, maybe $1,500 a month. I was getting paid my fee of $100 every month. I was probably making like $400 per player, like nothing. And this is how I grew. I was able to grow, and every year, like it was 2-3 years, and I was like the super agent. Guys like Smush Parker ended up going there. A player like one of my clients, Choo Choo, who was drafted by the Lakers and ended up going to Denver Nuggets. He went out there. Like, I started bringing out names to Mongolia and really started bringing a lot of awareness for the league. So that's pretty much how things really kicked off for me.
If you just tuned in, we're talking to Daniel Hazan of Hazan Sports Management. You look at the landscape of sports agents in the NBA, and there are a lot of old guard guys. There are also big agencies. What are some of the obstacles you need to overcome to get players to go with you? Obviously, Mongolia is a far cry from the NBA. So if there's this really good player and it's a choice between your agency as opposed to one of the big boys, how do you try and make that sell?
Of course, yeah. I mean, the very clear sell is the energy that we bring and how young we are. So right off the bat, your relationship with us is a real relationship. You're dealing with an agency that's all similar in age with you, guys who understand, the new trend in social media, marketing, advertising, guys who come with energy, and guys who are going to give you attention. And that's, very important for a lot of guys. Some guys are big on, what part of agency there are as far as, like, who else is in the agency, et cetera. And other guys are more concerned with, hey, who's going to give me the most attention? So if you're a player that's looking for attention and someone who's going to give you, the time of day, then we're the ones for you.
You mentioned, about being young and social media. Andrew Honig is a friend of yours. He's a partner with you as well. He oversees the endorsements, partnership outreach, brand development, event management, and public relations. Now, this has become a major, major part of sports these days. And you take a look just at Colin Kaepernick and what's transpired since he opted out of his 49ers contract. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that there are not 60 better quarterbacks in the NFL right now. In fact, he almost had a job with the Ravens, okay, and that seemed to fall apart because of a tweet his girlfriend made. So, how do you guys, develop that and try and keep these players in check? One stupid tweet could really derail a career, especially if you're a college guy looking to go to the pros.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with it right now. I just had a situation with a player that put out a tweet last night, and you have to do a lot of protecting on the situation and response, and there's ways to handle it. To address the situation with Colin Kaepernick, one of my clients, is Greg Hodges. So, Greg is a man before his time. He stood up for the same things that Colin is standing up for, and the whole Black Lives Matter thing. His one act after he won the championship with the Bulls at the White House, ended his entire career. So, in today's day and age, it's very important to filter out what you say, and really, it's unfortunate, but a lot of guys, fall in the trap of, not being able to speak their mind because, they know it'll affect their livelihood.
So in the middle of all this and building a business and doing well, you decide to go to law school. Why did you do that, and how do you think that will help you as an agent?
Well, I mean, listen, this business is all about contract negotiations and knowing your rights, knowing your players' rights. So obviously going to school is something that's very important. I could probably say that, going to law school was something that I always wanted to do. And it was something that was very important to me to do. To set out a goal and make sure that I always have something in my pocket, in my back pocket. Because, one day, life is like a circle. One day you're on the top, the next day you're on the bottom. And that's something that, my mother really instilled in me my entire life. I actually took a break from school after my second year just because I felt like I had to focus on this business. And obviously the growth of the business, is growing, very rapidly. We've negotiated 12 NBA contracts over the last 4 years. And, there are guys who have been in this business for 30 years and never had a player, on an NBA roster. So, I just felt like it was important to put that on hold and just focus on my lifelong dream.
Yeah, it's also interesting that you mentioned before how you were a huge Knicks fan and you hung around the Garden and the awnings. I have to imagine that over and above being an agent and fulfilling that dream and getting a guy on the NBA roster, this past month you actually went to Upton Westchester training camp with a player to sign a contract for the New York Knicks. Tell us how that felt and what that was like.
That was probably, one of the biggest accomplishments and best feelings, of my life. Being there, being in that facility and seeing all the greats, all their jerseys hanging up, on the wall and sitting in the office with Scott Perry, that's a dream come true, for me. And it makes it even more special knowing that I was, there's a dream come true as well, as well for my client. So for Jamel Artis. So, being there was special. And it's something I'll never forget. And I look forward to seeing my client in the Garden.
And we look forward to seeing your client here. We had a little scheduling difficulty. Actually, Daniel, Andrew, and Jamal were supposed to come in today. Jamal had some prior commitment with the Knicks, wouldn't be able to make it here. But Jamal will come in studio in the next couple of weeks, so we're looking forward to that. You mentioned that, we mentioned that Andrew handles the branding of a player. So when you have a guy like Jamal who's a rookie, okay, and might conceivably spend some time with the Westchester Knicks, part of that contract, up to, I think, like 20 or 25 games in D-League. How do you go about branding a rookie like that when he conceivably could be spending some time up in Westchester and not on the NBA roster?
Without doubt. I mean, especially with the Knicks and with the New York fan base, I think it's very important to bring a lot of awareness of who a player is. And, these are the things that we're doing, building marketing, bringing awareness to who Jamel Artis is, give fans an opportunity to know who he is and to know his background, to know what he brings to the table. Because, all we need is for Jamel to get into the game and, it's one possession, one dive into the ball, one big shot. And once you get the fans riding on you, it forces the team to start thinking more seriously about how they want to use him. So, for us, it's very important to focus on bringing awareness to who he is to the fans. That way, when they come to the Garden, they already, have heard the name Artis. And with that, hopefully that will, catapult, with his strong play, will catapult the fans and management to fully commit.
We're talking to Daniel Hazan of Hazan Sports Management. You take a look at a player like that. He was a fantastic D1 ball player for Pitt, averaged 18.2 points, I believe, per game, had 43 points in one game against Louisville. When a guy like that goes undrafted, all right, and he's your client, what's the timetable? What happens the day after the draft when a guy like that, who's a big-time player, doesn't get drafted? What's the next step for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I could tell you exactly where we were. We were in Midtown in his apartment in Manhattan. And, we're sitting through the draft, and I'm getting calls, and guys are saying, hey, 34, 45, 52, 56, 58, 59. Teams are calling. They're like, hey, is he available? What will he do? Will he do a draft and stash? Will he go overseas? Will he go to the V-League if we draft him and take his rights? Blah, blah, blah. And there's so much movement. And every second there's high hopes, low hopes. And you're like, oh, my God, am I going to get drafted? And the draft comes in, and then they don't take him. And you're like, oh, but I had a good workout there. And then right after the draft, the phone starts buzzing. And teams start calling, and they're like, okay, this is what we want to do. This is what we're offering. And it was kind of crazy because, we had spoken to Miami Heat at the time, and we had told them that we would, that we were committed to them to go to Summer League and whatever the case may be. And we, the second the draft was over that night, our mind was set like we're going to Miami. And the next day we got a call from the Knicks, and the Knicks put out an offer that we couldn't decline, and we told Miami, we're like, listen, this is the offer that we have, and this is where we want to go, and this is what's best for Jamel. And next thing you know, we're going to New York.
And could be the very last move and a lasting legacy of Phil Jackson, because Phil Jackson's the guy who brought him in for the Summer League, and it could. I know he had a really good workout with the Hornets as well. Do you see your agency branching out to other sports, maybe hockey, football, baseball as well?
No, I don't. Just because I'm very hands-on, and I like being in control of things, and I don't know anything about any other sport. I thought I knew something about basketball, and I didn't know anything. So, there's no way I can see myself branching out to any other sports. I want to be good at this sport. I want to grow in this sport and get better players and grow this agency. And we're really still in our infancy stages. And hopefully, that'll be something that'll be sustainable for a long time.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now with the agency?
Yeah, I mean, in 5 years from now, we're hoping to have our first max contract NBA player. That's our goal. Right now, we're content with, with the guys we have, in the sense that we have, all our guys are all minimum contract players. We've had players and they've all been on minimum contracts throughout, and now it's, we're trying to go to the next step. Last year's goal was to get a player, in the draft combine, and Jamel was our first player ever to be in the draft combine, and that was for us something that was really important to try to accomplish. And next year our goal is to have a drafted player, and every year just add one more step. These things are you gotta take baby steps. You can't jump too quickly, and our growth is really rapid, but we can't, I can't see ourselves taking that leap of just going from getting guys who are on minimum contracts to max contract players. Something that you got to build over time.
That first max contract will take care of a lot of that $30,000 travel expense from that first couple of years. Daniel, we really appreciate it. We hope to speak to you many times over the next couple of years as more of your guys sign. We're looking forward to having Jamal come in studio. We really appreciate your time tonight. It's a great story.
No problem. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys.
You got it. Daniel Hazan of Hazan Sports Management.